The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Hello, and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Thursday to join us. Have you ever felt backed into a corner, or felt like nothing was going your way and the universe was working against you? Well, there's a reason that this happens, and it happens in the 6-inch space between your ears. In today's episode, I'm going to share 3 case studies and show you 3 keys to overcoming this phenomenon so you can get anything that you want. Now, I'm going to start a little bit differently today. I'm going to start by sharing a few stories with you. These are actual clients I've worked with. Of course, I've changed the names and certain key details about their story to protect their identities. Now, the first story is about a 40-year-old mother of 2 twin boys who are 8 years old, and we'll call her Sally. Now, when Sally came to see me, she had struggled with weight issues her entire life. Although I'm not a weight loss specialist, I have tapped into the fact that when the body gets into balance, when we get everything genetically lined up, when we get everything hormonally lined up, things like metabolism and weight tend to fall into line. So Sally had heard from several other clients that I had treated who also happened to be friends of hers that I had good success in this area of weight loss, especially with women in middle age. So she reached out. As we began talking in that first visit, I determined that Sally was serious about her desire to lose weight. I found out that she had tried most every fad diet and even legitimate diet known to man, but still had mediocre and sometimes no results. She had even been told by well-intentioned health professionals throughout her life, you just need to exercise more and eat less, which is also what the mainstay of her efforts were, but still didn't get the results that she needed. So she knew something was out of balance and she wanted that checked out. And so I started working with Sally, and over the course of several months, our changes were very minimal. And I was doing everything I could in my power to empower her, give her the tools to get her body working with us instead of against us. And we just weren't making any progress. Now, in those first sessions, when I worked with Sally, I had helped her develop the reason why she wanted to do this. Well, she told me it was for her twin boys. I want to do it for them. I'm a single mom and I want to be healthy for them. And man, that's a noble goal. And, when you're a single mom and you've got 2 kids to raise, especially twin boys, I mean, you got your hands full. And so I thought that her why was sufficient enough. And come to find out, as I got to know Sally over time, there were a lot more layers to that story than I realized. And I realized that she was sabotaging herself, and she didn't even realize she was sabotaging herself and her progress. So about 3 months in, I decided that we would revisit the reason why she wanted to do this and see if we could go a little bit deeper, preferably a lot deeper. And here's the conclusion we came to. Sally had been in a tremendously difficult marriage relationship where her spouse was abusive. And the spouse being abusive was what prompted the divorce, because Sally didn't want the boys growing up being abused physically the way they were. So Sally opted to pull out of that to protect her kids, to protect herself, and started a new life. Now, this person, the spouse or ex-spouse, came back and sued for the rights to have visitation. And it was a long, drawn out court battle. Sally ended up winning because the abuse was so prominent. It was well documented. She won her case in court, and the spouse did the ex-spouse did not get custody. So I proposed this question to Sally in that session, and I said, "What if your why is, yeah, it's about the boys, but what if your why was bigger than what it has been? What if your why was because you've got to raise these boys? And if something happens to you by law, because there is nothing other than a court order and a divorce settlement saying that this ex-spouse can't have custodial rights right now, if you're gone, that person could come back and sue the court and say, I want parental rights of my children. So do you want an abuser raising your children, or even the risk of that abuser raising your children if you're dead, if you're disabled, even you've had a stroke, you've had a major setback, and you're debilitated and you can't take care of your kids?" And she looked at me with her eyes that were so, her eyes got huge and they welled up with tears. And she said, "Absolutely not. That cannot happen." And she said, "I've never thought about that before." And I said, "And that is your why." I will tell you God's honest truth that over the next 9 months, Sally lost 65 pounds. Her metabolism normalized. She was no longer pre-diabetic. She was out of the woods in that area. And today she continues, and I've been working with her for years. Today she continues to be on that journey, and she continues to do well and take care of herself. You know why? Because her why was big enough. And it had to be big enough in order to overcome that self-sabotage. The subconscious really needed something to grasp hold of so that it could say, oh, that's what we're going to focus on, versus all this other stuff that was distracting and causing the self-sabotage. That's client number one. Client number two is Peter. Now, Peter is in his 30s, and Peter came to me when he was 1 year out from a cancer diagnosis, surgery, chemo, and radiation. He was cleared. He had reached his 1 year mark, and he was quote unquote cancer free. Oncology clinic had decided that they weren't going to follow up with the lab work to check those cancer markers as frequently as they had been. They had been doing them monthly, and they would say, "No, we're good to go every 6 months at this point." And I said, I'd never really liked that. Why don't we go ahead and continue to check those monthly, at least for the next 3 months, so I can establish a baseline on my side. So I started checking those every 3 months. And Peter came to me and he said, when we got to the 3 month mark, everything was normal. And he said, I would like to continue, just for my own mental health and my own sanity, I'd like to continue doing those monthly. I said, I totally agree. Let's continue doing these monthly, because he had been diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer, and a stage 4 cancer is significant. It's spread outside of the place where it originated. So I said, great idea. I agree with it. Let's just continue to do this lab. It's cheap. And, if insurance won't pay for it, it's cash pay price on it. It's really cheap. And we'll just get it done. And so that's what we did. At month number 9, his cancer marker went up 0.2 of a point. Now you may think, gosh, 0.2 of a point on a cancer marker like that, in a normal, healthy person without cancer, it means nothing. But to a person that's had cancer, when their previous levels have been 0, 0, 0 all the way across now for 1 year and 9 months, that's significant for it to pop up. That means that cancer has come back. Now, that cancer tumor and the organ where that cancer was totally removed. So you would think, okay, this is not supposed to be there. It's got to be somewhere else. So of course, he panicked. He has a 10-year-old daughter. His goal is, I want to see her graduate high school. I want to see her if she wants to go to college. I want to see her graduate college. If she chooses to get married, I want to walk her down the aisle. And those are life events that I have to be there for. And this cancer has no place in my life. So we've got to make sure that we do everything we can to get this under control. So when you start dealing with stage 4 cancer survivors, and oncology says that they've exhausted everything that they can do, we can go back and rescan, which is what happened. And Peter's scan came back normal. I didn't agree with that because there's a scan that can be done in Europe that can't be done here because the FDA hasn't necessarily approved it to be done here. Now, it's been being done in Europe for over 20 years, but it's not been approved here in the United States. So I actually, on a bold move, set up an appointment with him in London in the UK and sent him there for this specialized scan. And it came back that he had 4 cancer lesions on his bones. He had two in his ribs and 2 in his hip area and on the bone. And I was like, okay, now we know what it is. We know where it is. We can get more aggressive. So we started doing some non-conventional type things. We started doing proton laser therapy or focal radiation therapy. It's called proton therapy. Well, I referred him for that. And then we started doing some non-conventional supplementation. And I'm going to tie this into client story number 3 here in just a minute because it happened simultaneously, this thing that happened to them. So I had them on a particular peptide therapy that actually is very well known for improving the immune system and decreasing the size of cancer tumors and things like that. Now, peptides are simply chains of amino acids. Our bodies produce peptides, but over time, as we age, we produce less and less and less of them. And when we're under stress, we drastically deplete our peptide levels and we just don't have them. So physical stress, like having cancer, going through surgery, going through chemo, going through radiation, all that stuff plays into it. So your peptide levels just drop tremendously. So I had him on this particular peptide and some other things, some other non-conventional supplementation. And we were able to his numbers fell back down to normal into the 0 range. And the oncologists kind of scratching their head because they had found nothing. And we were doing the proton therapy in another state because of the lack of ability in our state to have that done. So we were doing this in another state outside of the purview of the oncologist that had treated him initially. But the oncologist was aware we were referring all the information over there. And the oncologist was kind of scratching their head. It's like, you know what? You got stage 4 cancer. We've done everything that we know to do. Our scan's negative. But if this normalizes your numbers, keep doing what you're doing, which is really a breath of fresh air because a lot of times conventional medicine, they don't necessarily take a stance like that. They're like all or nothing, do it our way or hit the highway. And but they didn't do that to this guy. They took compassion with Peter and said, listen, get it. You got a 10-year-old daughter. Your goal is to stay alive. Do what you got to do. And we don't understand it, but do what you got to do. And that leads me to client number 3. So client number 3 is John. John also middle age. He's my age actually. And I've been treating John for, I don't know, 10 years and been working with him on functional medicine level for about 10 years. And one day we did routine labs and I saw just the slightest change in his hemoglobin hematocrit, which was his red blood cells, and it had gone down. And I was like, man, in all the years I've seen you, yours has always been the same. Or, it just doesn't go down. And guys, they don't lose blood like that unless there's a reason. Women, they have menstrual cycles, so they lose blood. So we see those fluctuate all the time. But in guys, we just don't see that fluctuate. And I was suspicious, he was at that age where we needed to have a colonoscopy. And I said, let me refer you over for a colonoscopy. And sure enough, the colonoscopy came back um, that there was a tumor there, so much so large that they could not advance the scope past it. So a very large tumor, softball sized tumor. And so he immediately referred to oncology, started getting all this bad news about how invasive and how aggressive it was after the biopsy, and was basically told that he would have to have a urostomy and a colostomy, which is a bag that is attached to your abdomen that you poop in, and then a tube that comes out of your lower abdomen that you pee through. And because they were going to have to remove everything in that area. It was very advanced in stage. And this particular client of mine was like, no, we're not going to take no for an answer. We're going to find a specialist. On his own, they found a specialist that specializes in that particular type of cancer only, who's in Florida. They had a consultation with him. They took his case, and he had surgery. He had chemotherapy. They did not do radiation. They did chemotherapy and surgery. And so far today, he's doing great. Now, we also put him on non-conventional therapies. And the parallel between client number 2, Peter, and client number 3, John, both had cancer, totally different cancers, by the way, was the fact that they were on one particular peptide therapy. Now, in the course of treating them, the Food and Drug Administration decides that they're going to come against compounding pharmacies that compound these peptides, especially this particular one. And they pulled it from the market. So that created a whole new issue at that point. We were able to find a workaround around that, and we did, and both of them are back on that peptide. And both of them are doing extremely well. John's case is relatively new. We're about 1 year out, and so far cancer-free. Again, doing extremely well. Did not have to have that extensive invasive surgery to remove all those organs and body parts. So he didn't have to have all that. There, as I tell you these stories, there are 3 key lessons that we can learn from them when it comes to achieving what you want to achieve. The first thing is that each of my clients had a big enough why. They developed a big enough why over time, or they automatically had a big enough why. Now, I will say that cancer, and I've seen this throughout my career, cancer is one of those things that will give you a big enough why instantaneously. It's not something you develop over time. When it comes to things like, I want to better my health, I want to take better care of myself, I want to lose weight, this, that, and the other, typically that why we struggle to develop that why, and it has to be developed over time. I'm going to hopefully shorten that curve for you so that we can hone in on how to develop a big enough why. And notice I said big enough, because if you remember from the first case with Sally, she had a why. She knew she needed to be there for her twin boys, but her why wasn't big enough. She still had that sabotage that kind of crept in over time and kept her from losing weight, getting to where she wanted to. But once she found the why, and that why was bigger than her desire to sabotage, her subconscious mind moved heaven and earth to rewire its own programming so she could be successful. Now, maybe you've had times in your life where you've had health goals or business goals or professional goals or even relationship goals that you sabotaged, or shall I say your subconscious programming sabotaged. Well, there's something you can do about it. You need to grab hold of a why that is so big that you can't escape it. Now, what is your why? You need to ask yourself that. What is my why? And then you need to ask yourself, is my why big enough? Well, how do you know whether your why is big enough? Well, you need to ask yourself, does it evoke a knowing within me that if I don't fulfill this why, there are going to be huge consequences? That's how you know your why is big enough. See, in Sally's case, her original why did not evoke that knowing within her that if she didn't fulfill this why, there were going to be huge consequences. But once she understood that if she didn't lose the weight and she didn't decrease her type 2 diabetes risk and her blood pressure didn't come down and all of the swelling she was having in her lower extremities didn't go away, which mean that her cardiovascular system and possibly even her kidney system was struggling at times. If she didn't take care of those things, she may not be there to raise her children, and her abusive ex-spouse would be there and probably get the rights to raise those children. That's when her why became big enough. That's when it became a reality for her. She had a knowing within her that if she did not fulfill this why, there were going to be huge consequences. That's how you know when your why is big enough. Now, here's a tip. If you've sabotaged yourself in the past, which most of us have, it's kind of a normal human thing to do, then your why, the why that you choose is going to be something that you've never used as a why before. Now, I want you to dig deep because it's there. It is, trust me. It's like a diamond. It's hiding in the rubble. It's hiding in the rocks. You got to dig it out, but it's waiting to be discovered. So do the work and discover your why. Work on it. Make it a priority because our why evolves over time. With Sally, I'm currently working with her right now because the twin boys are in high school. So yeah, she's going to want to be there for them when they're in college and when they launch into adulthood. But it's not as much of a priority now as it was because they could raise themselves at this point. There would be no custody issue. So Sally's why actually has to shift. So our why, even our big why, will shift over time. Okay. So just be aware of that we have to be willing to shift our why over time because it will grow with us. The number two thing that is a takeaway here from these case studies is each of my clients had a really clear vision, a dream, a fantasy, if you will, of what they wanted. You see, and you may be confusing this with a why. You may say, well, how is that different than your why? No, it is different. Let me walk you through it. You have to allow yourself to dream. And sometimes when you're in the midst of a pain or a struggle, it's very difficult to dream. But you need to allow yourself, give yourself permission to dream. When we were in school growing up, in elementary school, well, it's all through our school career, but in elementary school, and even into our adult life, we seem to have our natural creativity and ability to dream squelched. For whatever reason, it becomes squelched. It's no longer acceptable to daydream in class. You have to pay attention. You have to sit up straight, have to do your work. You have to clean up your mess around your desk, right? I mean, you remember those days, don't you? Even if you're saying, but Dr. Brian, I'm not a creative person. I will challenge you on that every single time. You were made to be creative. Every single person born on this planet is creative. Just look at children under the age of 6 years old. When they play, they're very creative and they're living and playing in fantasy worlds that they've created. You still have the ability, that ability deep down inside you. You just have to wake it up. Bob Proctor, who I just really respect and have followed for a long time, Bob Proctor has always taught that there are 3 types of goals, and it relates to this dreaming portion. So bear with me a second. There's an A-type goal, a B-type goal, and a C-type goal, he calls them. Now, he explains that an A-type goal, or A-type goals are the things that you already know how to get the results for. Okay, so they're easy. They're almost on autopilot. The B type goals are doing the things that you think you can do and achieve on your own. You're not quite sure, but you're pretty sure that you can achieve these things on your own. But a C type goal, it's based on your wants, your deepest desires that come from your dreams and your fantasies, doing the things that you have no idea how you're going to accomplish or achieve, but you proceed forward in faith anyway. Uh, I want you to do this exercise. I want you to create two dream wish list or want list, if that's what you want to call it. One list is a personal want or dream list, and the other list is a professional want or dream list. Now, I want you to journal everything you want or desire. Pretend like there is no limit to finances, no limit to availability of resources, whatever those resources are, and just dream big. Allow yourself to dream big, so big that the adult voice within you in the back of your mind is screaming, there is no way you can do that or have that for that matter. But a dream that's so big, a fantasy that's so big and crazy and wild that the little child voice in the back of your mind is jumping up and down, up and down with excitement and joy and saying, yes, 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 we can do this. What fun this is. So cool. And I want you to ask yourself as you're doing this exercise, what do I want? What do I want to be? Where do I want to go? How do I want to think? How do I want other people to perceive me? I want you to fantasize, and I want you to fantasize big. Give yourself permission to dream. It's okay to dream. When I did this exercise the first time, my coach and a really good friend, lifelong friend, told me, Brian, I don't think your dream is big enough or specific enough for that matter. He politely said, you need to go back to the drawing board and you need to think big. And once I grasped hold of the rationale and the reason behind it, and then how to do it, by just allowing myself free form of thought and just saying, okay, nothing's impossible. I live on planet possible and everything's possible. I'm going to write down every dream I've ever had. That's when things started turning around. So the number 3 takeaway from my clients, these case examples, is they all 3 had a willingness to do the work required to move their want from fantasy to a tangible goal, to actually achieving that goal. With your newly developed dream list in hand, I want you to pick one personal dream off that list and one professional dream off that list that you want to see become a reality. They should both be in alignment. I need to warn you on that. They need to be congruent with one another. One cannot conflict with the other. So make certain that the 2 dream goals you pick are in alignment and they're going to work with each other, not against each other. Next, I want you to make certain that the dream goal is not the result of a bigger goal. For example, your dream goal should be, for example, if your dream goal is having a nice house or driving a certain luxury or sports car or owning a yacht or traveling the world first class, whatever it may be, you may think, oh, that's my personal goal right there. In this case, I would challenge you on that. And I've learned this through personal experience. So those goals are big dream goals for sure. Okay. They're there. They're on your list. They're there for a reason because you allowed yourself to dream big. So we're not going to poo-poo those. They are good dream goals, but those dream goals are the result of a bigger dream goal. And in this case, if I'm following this example, it may be that your actual want for your personal goal is to have your income be at a certain level and have your Professional goal is that your business gross revenue grows to a certain level so that you can reap the rewards of having these other dream goals, like having a nice house, driving a luxury car, sports car, owning a yacht, traveling the world first class, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So I think hope you get the idea. If you don't, I need to know. Drop me a message. I'll be glad to help you clarify this, because it's really important when you're doing this to make sure that the dream goal that you put up there as the kingpin goal, personally and professionally, are kind of the beginning points, and everything else, all the other goals that you listed on your list, those dreams that you listed on your list, fall underneath them. They're subsequent to that big dream goal. Okay. After you've done this, I want you to ask yourself two questions. Am I able to do this? And the number two question is, am I willing to do this? With regards to, am I able to do this? You have the natural inclination, most of us do, that will say, I don't think I'm able, or if I was able, I would have already done it. So therefore it affirms that I don't think I'm able. And that's okay to think that, but I want you to put that aside just for a second. And I want you to believe that you are able to do whatever you set your mind to. Remember, you live on planet possibility. And when your subconscious mind is on board, there's nothing really that's impossible. If you think about it, and I want you to hear me out on this. If you think about it, man's ability to fly airplanes or fly in airplanes existed long before a couple of brothers who were bicycle repair shop owners invented the airplane and the ability to fly. I mean, the Wright brothers figured it out. They get noted in history as figuring it out because they saw the possibility. They dreamed big, and they said, no, we're going to keep working on this. But in reality, the ability to fly was already there. They just tapped into it. They discovered it. Or the ability to send email versus regular post mail has always been there long before our knowledge of how to do it was discovered. But somebody came along and discovered how to do it, and they figured it out, and they put systems in place to make that happen. I think you get the idea. Your ability to achieve these dreams exist. You just have to tap into it. You have to discover how to make them a reality. Now, with regard to willingness, are you willing to do what it takes to achieve your dreams? Will it mean some kind of change is involved in your life? Absolutely. Will it mean changing your habits, changing your thinking, changing the people you hang around with, changing the places that you go? Are you willing to rely on your big why when the going gets tough? If you're willing, then this is where the fun begins. And when you are able and willing, then guess what? You can move your fantasy to a theory. It's no longer fantasy. It becomes a theory. And then you can move that theory to a goal that's achievable. And before you know it, that goal will actually become a reality, and it will become fact. Now, those are the three keys to getting anything you want. It's lessons that I've learned. Sure, a lot of this came from, Bob Proctor's teachings, but a lot of it comes from just human experience and working with people over time and seeing these patterns play out in those that are successful with their goals and versus those that are not successful with their goals. If you want to be successful with achieving anything that you want to achieve, then you need to keep these three things top of mind every single time. You need to have a big enough why. You need to dream big. I mean, really big. And you need to have a willingness to do the work required to move the needle, move that fantasy to a tangible goal. If you can do that, you can pretty much have anything you want. Now, I'll leave you with this quote from Steve Bow. He's vice president of a Fortune 500 insurance company, retired now. He was noted for always saying, God's gift to you is more talent and ability than you will ever use in one lifetime. Your gift to God is to develop and utilize as much of that talent and ability as you can in this lifetime. Let me repeat that. God's gift to you is more talent and ability than you will ever use in one lifetime. Your gift to God is to develop and utilize as much of that talent and ability as you can in this lifetime. Those talents and abilities are sitting right there waiting for you to take ownership of them, use them, and do good with them. It's right there. It's waiting. All you have to do is take hold of it. So ask yourself, when am I going to start doing this? All right, that's all for today. I have a favor to ask. We are launching the boot camp again. We're in the process of doing some work on that. So right now, everything is still boot camp oriented. We're probably going to be relaunching another live boot camp here soon. But go ahead and sign up for the Gene Hack Boot Camp. And what that will do, it will let me know that you're interested. And when we get ready to relaunch and do another, we're going to actually do a masterclass. It's not going to be a boot camp. I'm going to try to get the masterclass material in about a day's worth of material instead of 5 days in a boot camp. A lot shorter, a lot easier to digest, a lot easier to go through. So, and you can go through at your own pace. You'll be able to go through at your own pace. But right now, go to drbriangBrown.com/gene hack/bootcamp and sign up for the free bootcamp. It's free. It puts you on the mailing list. And yes, and it lets me know that you're interested. And I will be coming back and I'll be doing some rehashing on that in the near future. Now, tune in next Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time for our next In the Zone segment, where I'll be discussing some of the latest research, my insights about brain health, my insights about optimization of your genes, my insights about physical and emotional wellness achievement and your journey. So until next time, most informed, most trusted, and most grateful that you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone.